Hey, what's up my friends and fellow travelers in BattleTech? So today I'm going to do something pretty different from my usual tactics videos, kind of a big departure. I want to be talking a bit about something that also obsesses me, which is the aesthetics of BattleTech and which designs for mechs look cool. So I'm going to be kind of expressing my views in the form of a contest about which of the original 14 mechs look cooler in their original unseen forms as opposed to in their recent new classics forms. Now, to start out with, a thing that you're not going to hear me ranking or including in my discussion today is the re-seen Project Phoenix versions of the original 14 mechs. You know, to me, the idea that what you see here is supposed to be a Warhammer is just ridiculous, right? This looks terrible. This is not a Warhammer. It bears no resemblance to a Warhammer, nor is it even at all cool looking. So these mechs are not going to be part of the discussion today. Now, in contrast to the Project Phoenix re-seen mechs, essentially all of the new classic mechs that are being marketed today in the new BattleTech miniatures, they look good, right? In general, the new classics mechs look good. But my opinion is that the unseen mechs from the original BattleTech box sets also look really good. And so we're going to have a kind of close contest in a lot of these cases because the unseen mechs have a special place in my heart. They were what originally got me excited about BattleTech back in the early 90s when I started. And so for the new classics to supplant them in my heart is going to be a difficult task for them. So let's see which of them are going to be up to the challenge. Now for today, we're going to be looking at the original 14 unseen mechs from the original BattleTech game of Armored Combat back in the day. So we're going to start with the 20 tonners. We're going to start with the Locust. Now the Locust, the original Locust, was a really cool looking mech, you know, very fast looking, like it looks like it goes fast, which is exactly what the Locust is supposed to be doing. The medium laser underneath it looks really impressive and cool, and its legs are just like really maneuverable looking. It looks kind of, you know, weak and vulnerable, but it's a 20-ton mech and it should. So I just think that, you know, and the head, the cockpit design on this old Locust, taken from some anime that I forget, but it looks awesome, okay? The downside to the original Locust, the only downside I see is that the arms don't look like they're carrying machine guns exactly. They look like they're carrying arrays of 3 weapons, so I'm not sure what's going on there. But that said, the new Locust has a lot of strengths, right? So its arms look like they are carrying machine guns, and it really is an excellent spiritual successor to the original unseen Locust. The new classic Locust looks a lot like the original Locust while giving it a more modern kind of articulated look. So between the two of them, I could not choose. I'm going to say that this one is a tie. The two Locusts are equally cool looking. Now, a tie is an accomplishment for the new classics to me, because the original in this case looks so cool. The fact that they could tie it is very impressive. So I highly recommend the new miniature. Now the original Stinger was also really awesome looking. Out of the original mechs that were based on the Veritechs from Robotech, the Stinger was the one that, you know, those were all cool looking. To me, all the Veritechs were awesome looking. That is the Stinger, the Wasp, and the Phoenix Hawk. And the Stinger was the best looking of all of them because it had the coolest looking head. I mean, look at that cockpit. Look at that little square aperture. I think that is such a high-tech, cool looking design. Now, again, in this case, the new Stinger really is a very strong, more articulated, more armored looking spiritual successor to the original. And in particular, it just does a pretty much perfect job of, you know, duplicating and modernizing that really awesome head design from the original Stinger. So in this case, the cool armored look of the new Stinger to me just edges out ahead. And I'm going to say that the new classic Stinger has won the first victory for the new classics over the original Unseen. The new Stinger, actually, I would say, is even cooler looking than the Stinger from the Unseen, which was already dang cool. Next, we've got another BattleTech, which is the Wasp. This is probably the second most cool looking out of the BattleTechs that made into BattleTech, because it also has a really sweet looking head. You know, it's kind of like it's got a very sleek look on that head, and I like it quite a bit. The handless right arm looks really cool. You know, it makes that medium laser look very threatening. If you compare the new Wasp, the head is like kind of odd to me. It looks kind of like almost more like the head of a griffin to me. And to me, that's kind of where the heart and soul of the Wasp lives, is in that cool looking head design. So in this case, I'm going to award the Metal Excalibur to the original Unseen Wasp, which I think is probably significantly cooler looking than the new one, just because of that sweet head design that it had. Now, the next of the original 14 mechs in tonnage order is the Phoenix Hawk, which obviously is an awesome mech to pilot. It's also a cool looking mech, but if you look at the Tech Readout 3025 version of the Phoenix Hawk, it had kind of a goofy head. You know, the head looks kind of spherical with a rounded looking visor on it. And to me, that's just not as cool looking as the original BattleTech head. So it's got a bit of a wonky head. Now, the same goes, I would say, for the new classics Phoenix Hawk, which has a great body design with cool jump jets on the back. That looks very Phoenix Hawky. But then the head just looks kind of pointy. It looks like a head of like the Decepticon symbol from Transformers almost. It doesn't scream Phoenix Hawk to me at all. So I'm gonna say that there is a tie between the Tech Readout 3025 image of the original Unseen Phoenix Hawk and the new classics Phoenix Hawk. They both have really cool body designs, and they both have kind of wonky head designs that I'm not a huge fan of. But a thing about the Phoenix Hawk is that the unseen images of the Phoenix Hawk kind of vary. And if you look at the original miniature for the Phoenix Hawk, the head has more of a kind of like square helmet look, which looks a lot more like the BattleTech from Robotech. So I consider this miniature version, this original unseen miniature version of the Phoenix Hawk, to be way cooler looking than the picture of it from Tech Readout 3025. So I would say that that conceptualization of the unseen Phoenix Hawk as shown in the unseen miniature wins out over the new classics Phoenix Hawk. All right, the Griffin. The Griffin is just a sweet looking mech. I love that head, you know, that kind of like high-tech bug-looking head on the Unseen Griffin. I love those sturdy-looking armor baffles on the arms. It's just a cool-looking mech, and it's one of those that really looks like it fills its role of being a fast, long-range sniper. And this is another case, I think, where the new classics version has done an almost perfect job of replicating the original with, you know, additional kind of articulated, heavy armored look. So in this case, I find it impossible to pick a favorite between the two. The classic, you know, I should say the original unseen version, you know, my heart is with that mech, but the new one just looks so cool. They have so many similar virtues. I can't pick a favorite, and I'm going to call it a tie between the two versions of the Griffin. Now, the Shadowhawk is a mech that has always made me feel ambivalent because it's a low-performing mech on the battlefield, but it just looks awesome. Like the Shadowhawk, you know, it's got a really cool-looking kind of medium laser arrangement on its right arm in the original Unseen version, and a cool gun on its left shoulder, and that head is just so sleek-looking. So cool looking. You know, I love the look of the unseen Shadowhawk. The new Shadowhawk is very similar. It's just got a kind of blockier design. One thing that's quite different about it, I would say, is that the right arm medium laser is much less prominent on the New Classics Shadowhawk. But other than that, you know, it looks similar, but I would say that the head is different. It looks kind of more like almost like a little train car or something attached there on top of the mech. It's not quite the same, although it's close. And because of that cool looking medium laser and that especially cool looking head, I'm going to give the medal to the Unseen Shadowhawk, even though the New Classics Shadowhawk is a really solid looking mech, and I would definitely recommend the miniature for it. The Unseen one is even better. Okay, the Wolverine. Now this is an interesting case because the original Unseen Wolverine, it's kind of in almost all ways the opposite of the Shadowhawk. The Wolverine, especially in 3025, is a mech that performs really well in battle, and the original Unseen version just looks hideous. Like, it just looks like a disgusting Franken mech to me. The head, it doesn't look like a head, it looks like a weird kind of like apartment building with a little medium laser turret built into the apartment building on the top. You know, the autocannon looks like some kind of bizarre little like submachine gun, and he's got this weird briefcase in his left hand. I mean, forget the briefcase, whatever, like that's screwy, but just in general, I mean, the head is really the thing that ruins the Unseen Wolverine. The Unseen Wolverine is disgusting. Like it makes me want to puke. Okay, whereas if I look at the New Classics Wolverine, man, like that head looks cool, right? And it fits with the Wolverine aesthetic, with the original Wolverine. It kind of reminds you of the original Wolverine, but it doesn't look gross. It looks great. So I'm enthusiastically awarding the medal to the New Classics Wolverine and just high-fiving it because it is so amazing to have a miniature of the Wolverine after all of these years that I want to put on the table. Like, I have spent decades avoiding playing with the Wolverine because I can't stand looking at my Wolverine miniatures. And now I have a Wolverine miniature that I can stand looking at, that I like looking at, and that I can use to bring this awesome mech to the field with no second thoughts. The Rifleman is another low-performing and cool-looking design. If you look at the Unseen version, you know, it's got that really cool head that's kind of in the center of the torso, just kind of jutting out, and that head just fits in such a cool way with the two side torsos. And then the guns on those arms, they just look impressive, right? Like, those guns look like they could wreck you, and they look very futuristic. The New Classics Rifleman, you can see what they were going for, right? You can see how it's meant to be so similar to the original Rifleman, but it feels quite different. I mean, the head almost feels a bit like the Project Phoenix Rescene Archer's head. That's the kind of vibe that I get from it, which, you know, isn't such a great thing. And those side torsos just don't line up with the head in the same kind of way. And the arms don't have that symmetry of the guns, which I like so much in the original Rifleman. So from what I just said, you will not be surprised to see that I award the medal to the Unseen Rifleman, which I think is significantly cooler looking than the New Classics Rifleman. In fact, the New Classics Rifleman is maybe, out of the original 14, the only one of the New Classics mechs where I just wouldn't want to bring that miniature to the field. I wouldn't want to set it down on the table because I just don't like the way that it looks. So the designers of the New Classics had a tall order when they set out to do something like replicating the original Unseen Crusader, because that Crusader is a sweet, powerful looking mech. It's got those mighty shoulders, which carry the missiles in the Unseen version, although the missiles, per the design, are supposed to be in the arms, so that creates a little bit of weirdness for the mech warrior when they look at the mech. You know, the missiles are supposed to be in the arms, but then they're in the shoulders, which we usually associate with the side torsos. But that head is awesome. I love that kind of antenna coming out of it. I love the kind of like cyclopsy looking shape of the head. So the Unseen Crusader is tough to beat. The New Classics Crusader, it puts the missiles into the arms, but it keeps those powerful looking shoulders. You know, the mech still looks really tough, like it can kind of dominate the battlefield with its arsenal of missiles. And the head is, I mean, I have to say, like, it's even cooler than the original Crusader's head. So in the case of the Crusader, the New Classics designers have really outdone themselves. They have beaten an amazing unseen miniature and created a really awesome looking rendition of a classic mech. I love the New Classics Crusader, and I'm awarding it my medal. Now, the Unseen Thunderbolt has always been a little bit of a disappointment to me in visual terms, although of course the mech is amazing, right? The asymmetry of it works, but it kind of doesn't completely work. You know, that head is a little funny looking. It's a little small feeling. And the arms it has these big disproportionate gorilla arms. And the large laser is just really disproportionate in size. Like, it feels like, you know, it should be like the size of an AC-20 or something if you look at the miniature. So, you know, the Thunderbolt, it wasn't unplayably gross looking like the Unseen Wolverine, but it definitely wasn't ideal. Now, the Classics Thunderbolt just does a great job, like the Classics Wolverine did, of, you know, doing something that's recognizably a Thunderbolt. It's got that asymmetry, but it brings a little more symmetry to it. It makes things look a little more proportional to the size of the weapons that they're supposed to be, and it just looks like an awesome walking tank. So definitely for me, it's not terribly close. I'm going to go with the New Classics Thunderbolt over the Unseen Thunderbolt. This is an awesome miniature. It's an awesome design. I highly recommend it to you. The Unseen Archer is just iconic. You know, this is the mech that Jamie Wolf piloted. This is the mech that Morgan Kell piloted. Like, everybody, you know, who is anybody in the BattleTech universe piloted an Archer, and the mech looked cool enough to kind of fit with that. It had just an incredible head design. You know, I love the way that head kind of hangs low on the body with such a cool kind of shape to it that, again, like with the Rifleman, there's a kind of fun match between the shape of the head and the shape of the left and right torsos. In this case, the New Classics version does a pretty good job of replicating that, I would say. There is that kind of match between the torsos and the sloped down head. That said, the little cockpit feels kind of mousy and pinched to me at the front. Other than that, it feels really good to me, but I don't love the feel of that little cockpit. So the original Archer doesn't win this contest by a mile, but it does win to me. I think that the Unseen Archer is just a little bit better looking than the New Classics Archer, and if you can get the Unseen Archer miniature, it's a really nice miniature. I highly recommend it. The original Warhammer is another iconic mech, you know, and this is Natasha Kerensky's mech, so it's very important. It's very kind of crucial to BattleTech history, so it was really key that they get it right. And, you know, if you look at that New Classics Warhammer, it fits so well with what a Warhammer is supposed to be. The head is kind of more visible and distinct. You can kind of see where the cockpit is supposed to be more clearly than you're able to see it on the original Warhammer. The missile launcher looks a lot more armored and protected and like it's kind of integrated with the mech's body. And otherwise, it just fits. It just really feels like the original Warhammer did. So the New Classics Warhammer, I would say, is basically the Unseen Warhammer with a few noticeable improvements. And so even though the Unseen Warhammer looks great, I would award my number one to the New Classics Warhammer. It's an awesome, awesome design. One of the best of the New Classics mechs. They really killed it with this one. Now, if you put a gun to my head and forced me to say which of the original 14 Unseen mechs in BattleTech was the coolest looking, I would have to say it was the Marauder. You know, the sleek look of the Marauder, the impressive look of that autocannon on its back, the really cool design of the right and left arm PPC and medium laser combinations, the hunched forward kind of walker pod design. It's just got all of the things that I most love to see in a battle mech design. I just think that the original Marauder is a thing of beauty. And if you look at the New Classics Marauder, it it reproduces the spirit of that. The front cockpit, the little pointed forward cockpit looks great. They nailed the arms. The arms look exactly like more kind of heavily armored, resilient versions of the original. The legs are good. There's nothing not to like about the New Classics Marauder. To me, this is another case of a tie, and I just gotta say, like, a tie in this case is a great honor to the people who designed the classics, the New Classics Marauder, because equaling the coolness of the original Marauder is a feat that I would have thought was impossible. So hats off to them, and if you get the chance, go out there and buy, if you don't already have a bunch of them, the new Marauder miniature, because I just think it looks cool. Now, the original Battlemaster, the heaviest and last of the original 14, it's quirky in the best way. That bubbly cockpit with that kind of like grating of the tip of the head down below it. Again, there's that kind of cool match between the design of the head and the designs of the side torsos. The missile launcher on the side looks great. The PPC looks great. It's a really imposing, powerful looking, and just cool looking mech with such a quirky looking head that I enjoy. So you would have thought that nobody could have done better than that, right? But no, this is another case where I've just got to give the award to the New Classics, because they did something I would have thought was impossible. They took the original Battlemaster, they kept the spirit of it 100% intact, and they just found a way to make it even cooler looking. That kind of sideways slope of the side torsos looks perfect. The PPC looks even better than the original PPC, and they nailed the head. The head looks perfect. It's got that cool bubble cockpit, but it looks a little bit sleeker, which I like. So the Battlemaster is another victory for the New Classics, and a really excellent design and miniature. Now, this seems like an issue where there might be definitely some disagreement among BattleTech players, so I'd love to hear in the comments what kind of thoughts you all have about the comparative appearances of these mech designs. So in case you haven't been counting, that's 5 wins for the Unseen, but it's 6 wins for the New Classics. Given that the Unseen were legendarily cool-looking battle mech designs, I gotta give the thumbs up to the New Classics. They've done such a great job with this line of designs and miniatures. I think I'll probably be doing more of these kind of little rankings between the Unseen and the New Classics for the other Unseen, but anyway, I gotta express my appreciation and my approval of what the BattleTech team has been doing the last few years in the visual department, as well as in the marketing and the kind of rules department. They've really been killing it. So, thumbs up to all of this. Crash and burn, Mech Warriors, and have a great one.